Hello everybody, today I'm going to tell you about some of my favorite films. Just felt like something I wanted to talk about. Something I feel like it would be on brand, something I wanted to do, something that's cool. So I'm going to talk about some films that inspire me and some directors that inspire me. So first I'm going to start with some short films, and my favorite short films. I was thinking about if I was going to like rank them, all the movies, if I was going to rank them or if I was just going to talk about them, and I think I'm just going to talk about them because it's so hard to rank them. So my favorite short films. My favorite short film is probably Curfew by Sean Christensen, is his name. I believe it won an Academy Award for like best short film. And it was a really good, it was fantastic. It had sibling relationships, it had a dynamic between an uncle and like a young uncle and his niece, and like you don't see that dynamic a lot. You see like father and daughter, you see parents, you see siblings, but you don't really see like sort of like distant relationships like that. So it was really interesting dynamic, really interesting characters, really great cinematography, and just a couple of great scenes strung together in just a few minutes. That it was a fantastic short film, and it deserved all the praise that it's gotten. Another short film I really love is a New Zealand short film by Taika Waititi, who's he started off as like an indie guy in a different country, and now he's big and he does Marvel movies and stuff. One of his first films was Two Cars, One Night. That was fantastic. It was about two kids in two cars, like interacting. They're parked outside of a bar at night waiting for their like fathers to come out of the bar, and it's just their interactions. It was just really interesting, and like there was a lot of culture shock in it because it was these two Maori kids, and just the interaction was really interesting. You could tell it was the director drawing on his experience as a kid growing up in New Zealand and really like putting that into a scene outside of this bar, and it was really interesting film. And then the third one I really love is Wes Anderson's first like production, and that was Bottle Rocket, which was a great short film. It was him, it was Owen Wilson and Owen Wilson's brother, whatever his name is. They were amateur bank robbers, and they were going in for this robbery, and it was a great short film. It didn't even really show the bank robbery, but it still it just did a great job of telling that little story, and it was a little clip from life. It wasn't like a real dramatic story. Like Curfew, for example, was a full night beginning to end, and you can go either way with a short film, and Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket was sort of just a little snippet from these guys' life, and it was really interesting. And then when it was made into a feature film, it ended up being his first feature film, and it was good. You love going back to, like, for a musician, for example, you love going back to their, like, first album. Maybe it was, like, a self-produced album. That's sort of what Bottle Rocket felt like. It was just very, like, I don't want to say raw, but it was very, like, it was not up to par with Wes Anderson's standard now. And so it was a really interesting film because it was just like, it was totally him, but it was also just very like a raw version of his style, a very beta version of his style. Okay, now I'm gonna get into honorable mention for feature films because I've been taking way too long. Like, I've already been shooting for 7 minutes, so I didn't mean to do that. Honorable mentions, I got 3. Eagle vs. Shark, which is Taika Waititi. I think it was, it must have came before Boy. It was one of his very earliest projects, and it's so awkward and so weird, and I love it so much. And then another one is Submarine. I don't remember the director for this. I think he was a British guy. This is another really weird movie. It's about two kids. It feels like it would be a generic coming of age movie, but it ends up totally not being. Like, it's a really weird take on the coming of age genre, and it's just a very odd movie. And then there's, of course, Casablanca, which is, people say it's the greatest movie of all time. Everybody's seen Casablanca. It's a fantastic movie. A guy who made... what was his name? How did I forget his name? His name's on the screen. His name's all over the screen. Great movie. Obviously, probably the greatest movie of all time. It was really good. Now we'll move on to my actual favorites, which are not ranked. because I couldn't figure out how to rank them, man. So I love the Grand Budapest Hotel. That was a bigger movie. It won some Academy Awards for its writing. That was a Wes Anderson movie. It's beautiful. I mean, the production is stunning. The acting is great, and the movie is hilarious. I mean, the script is amazing. I've probably read the script more than I've watched the movie, and I love the style. I just love the dialogue is hilarious, and everything about that movie is fantastic. And it's sad. Like it's one of those movies that just sort of, it wraps up the plot, but it also just sort of ends, because what happens is it takes place, and I don't want to spoil it because I want you to go watch it. It's like a story within a story. So it's a person telling a story of a person telling a story of a person telling a story. So you have the story, which gets wrapped up nicely, and then you have the next story that gets wrapped up nicely. But then the overall story is just kind of sad. Like, it's just like telling stories in the old walls of a hotel in Europe, and that's just such a romantic, like, concept. I just love that story. Another movie I really like is The Squid and the Whale. And I don't remember this guy, the director. I'm so terrible with names. I'm so awful with names. But this guy, the guy who wrote and directed, I think he wrote and directed The Squid and the Whale, is also the guy who did Marriage Story, which just won something a couple years ago at the Oscars. This movie was funny. It's one of those movies that's like pretty repulsive in like a weird way. Not like repulsive, but just a very like irreverent movie, and a lot of like sort of gross things going on, characters that are really unlikable. And I love that idea of like, and you also see that in Submarine, which I mentioned earlier. It's just like characters that you wouldn't want to be friends with in real life, but you're forced to see them going through all these changes and stuff, and they grow on you, you know. There's nothing unrealistic or weird about portraying unlikable characters. It's just people don't do that super often. You got to stick it through with those characters, and it's so much more rewarding at the end. So this movie portrayed a family that's sort of in torment, a kid who has a bad relationship with his mom. You know, the kids, these two brothers, their parents are getting split up, and these brothers have opposing views. You know, the older brother wants to be with his dad, and the younger brother wants to be with his mom, and they sort of crisscross, you know, trying to bond with each other, the parents and the sons, throughout the story. And I think it's something everybody can relate to. I mean, whether your parents are divorced or split up or even together, every family goes through trouble. So it's a really interesting movie that takes that and portrays it in such a realistic way, but also in a very stylish and very kind of absurd way at times. Next movie is Singin In The Rain. Everybody knows Singin In The Rain. Fantastic movie, old movie, great movie. Got some great acting, great stories, great cinematography. It's big, it's colorful, it's perfect. It's the perfect like movie for its time. That's one of those movies that's timeless. I mean, that movie's gonna last forever. It's never gonna not be amazing. It's funny because it's about movies, and it's about like adapting to the times of movies, you know, talkies. And it's just funny how that kind of movie can stand the test of time. I gotta wrap this up. I had more, but I think I'm gonna do like 2 more. The next movie is Field of Dreams. Lovely movie. I think it was something Alden made this movie. I've always been a baseball fan, huge baseball fan, and this is a story, it's a father-son story in baseball, and like that story is covered so much. Like, that story feels like it should be tired, but this movie was one of the first to like be big that portrayed that story. A wonderful, for baseball fans especially, but I think it really holds up for anyone. It's got somewhat of a twist ending. It's funny, it's charming, it's not incredibly stylistic or anything, it's just totally story, and it's got such a weird plot that feels like it shouldn't be believable, but you just go along with it because it's almost like magic, you know. It's like the magic of baseball, the magic of these relationships that these characters are experiencing. It's just a really beautiful movie. The last movie I'll talk about is The Conformist from 1970. It was Bernaducci movie. He was a great director. He was a weird director. This movie is weird and great. It's very stylish. I love the look of this movie. If you like the Grand Budapest Hotel, I recommend this movie. It's like a darker version of that. It takes place during World War II. It's got some really interesting characters, and I know I keep using the word interesting, but these characters are cool. The main guy is this sort of hardcore Italian agent. He's torn. He's the conformist. You know, he's torn between being a conformist and sort of rebelling against what he knows and what he works for. And just the way it shows this war-torn Europe, this dark place that is sort of constantly changing and constantly posing new obstacles. One thing that I loved in this movie is that every time this character sort of like goes out into like the same city, it's different every time. Like there are different colors, there are different types of people out, and it really shows like the diversity of Europe, especially at that time. And when you get to the end, it's bleak and it's dark and it's empty, and it just shows you like the darkness of Europe at the time of the war. And I recommend going and watching it. So I was very vague about the plots. I didn't really explain the plots of any of these movies, and that's because I want you to go out and watch them. I mean, they're really good movies. Really movies that inspire me and make me want, especially when it comes to directors, it makes me want to go look into the director's story and go and find their earlier works and go and see people like them and what awards they've won and so on, and just try to get an idea of how these directors did what they did and made such beautiful pieces of art. So that's all I have today. I touched my nose for that. That's all I have today. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, please go out and watch those movies. Get some popcorn, get some gummy bears, have a good time. That's what movies are for. Sorry for being vague. I was just totally like being a fan about these I was totally just like being a fan about these movies the whole time, so I apologize if it's like not even coherent at all. Thank you so much for watching. That's it.